From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Melinda Akilami.
Hello and welcome. Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission clarifies position on the planned increase in electricity tariffs, says review of multi-year tariff order does not amount to hike in rates. Ijaw Youth Council members shut down Port Harcourt Electricity Distribution Office over continued blackout as Enugu residents complain about metering system by Enugu Disco. Abducted chairman of the Christian Association of Nigeria in Michika, Adamawa State, speaks from Boko Haram captivity, calls on government to intervene and save him. And huge crowds turn out at the funeral in Tehran for Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, killed in a U.S. drone strike on Friday. Plus, business, sports, news from Abuja, the FCT, and later from our studios in London.
And business news tonight, the Central Bank of Nigeria releases framework on Nigerian payment system to guide management of risk.
On sports news tonight, Spain through to the quarterfinal of the inaugural ATP Cup with a game to spare after beating Uruguay 3-0.
And from Abuja, one person shot dead following violent clash between APC and PDP supporters over local government area seats in Imo State.
The public outcry trailing the purported increase in electricity tariff may have finally been doused, as the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission says it does not have any plans to hike electricity tariffs, at least for now. The chairman of the commission, Professor James Momo, explains that the review of the multi-year tariff order does not mean an immediate increase in tariff for consumers. He adds that in the next 3 months, the commission would engage the public on the planned review before deciding on any implementation. The federal government, through the NERC, had in a statement on its website issued a directive approving the immediate review of electricity tariffs across the country. According to the document, the review of the amount paid by various categories of consumers ranges from 59.7% to 77.6%. Professor Momo further explains that the Commission will begin the regulation of estimated billing by electricity distribution companies who fail to provide meters for their customers.
There is no immediate increase in tariff for customers. Number two, write it carefully. The proposed tariff review, okay, is what we are mandated to do as a regulator. We have to do it twice a year. We've done the first one around June. January is here, thank God. That is when we have no other option but to do our job. And don't take us for granted, we must do our job. We have done the review and it's subject to public consultation. In the next 3 months, Dr. Arabi, the entire commissioners, and myself will be running from place to place to inform you, to engage you, just like we've done our job for consultation. So number two, I said there will be consultation. We have done our review. We have given a report card of what we saw based on all the indices for doing the reviews. Like going for an exam, we took our exam, we put in all the topics in the exam, and we said, this is the score. We've done our job. We have not said it is binding tomorrow morning. We said we are going to now do the second thing, do consultation, period. The other is simply a communication of what we have done as a regulator, looking at what it takes to increase or decrease tariff. If at the end of our meeting back and forth, we said no increase, no increase. There is going to be increase, it will be based on our engagement at the public forum.
While the controversy over the tariff increase lingers, some residents of Enugu and Bayelsa State have been reacting to other issues apart from the tariff. In Enugu State, the sudden phase-out of standalone prepaid meters by the Enugu Electricity Distribution Company since January the 1st has been a cause of concern to residents, while those in Bayelsa State complain about total blackout. They all want immediate government intervention.
Without this generator, Kenneth Samuel's access to electricity would be impossible. He has been living like this for some time.
Situation in Bayelsa is very terrible. In fact, for more than 2 weeks now, we've not had light. In short, we use our generator, as you can see. And the light situation is really affecting our businesses.
He is not alone in darkness. Most parts of Bayelsa State are plagued with power outage, a situation business owners and residents groan heavily under.
The light matter this time around, it affects me because I don't have any cold drink. That is why I open my fridge, keep like this. See water, nobody they buy the water because of no cold.
Daylight affords Channels Television a visit to the Port Harcourt Electricity Company in Yenugua, responsible for power supply to Bayelsa, which the crew learned has been under lock and key following the visit of some Irish youth who vented their anger over what they describe as poor service.
We are not the cause of darkness. We have been paying for darkness. So all we have done is a very simple thing. They should leave. We shut down their offices. We are occupying their office for now. They should leave. It's either they leave or they come to tell us, Bayelsans, that, well, we are ready to repent from our sins.
In Enugu State, exasperated consumers are also evident, but the case is somewhat different from perpetual blackouts being experienced in Bayelsa. Here, the bone of contention is the switch of metering systems by the Enugu Electricity Distribution Company, a move residents say came as a rude shock.
I am in darkness for no just cause because my meter has just, the energy has been exhausted and I came to buy energy to replenish it and I cannot buy. The card is here with me. It's very annoying.
That's not the only problem. The cost of acquiring a new meter is pegged at 39,000 naira, leaving residents even more frustrated.
How can I go and apply for a new meter again? The meter definitely is not my property. It is property. So what they're supposed to do is not to change it and continue collecting their rates.
Defending the action of the supply company, its communication director insists not only was good time given for the announcement of the change, the switch over by consumers will not be burdensome.
We're not depriving them of power, but we're saying once the energy you have on the meter finishes, you give us a call. We've set up a dedicated helpline. You call, they'll note your details and migrate you onto the postpaid billing platform while you now go ahead and initiate the process of getting your own meter. So,
for many years, power supply and tariffs have pitched consumers against the companies in Nigeria, and the situation in Bayelsa and Enugu have become additions to a list of issues begging to be resolved.
Well, the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, seems to have fresh suggestions for the federal government on the way forward for the power sector. The president of the NLC, Mr. Ayuba Waba, is asking the federal government to revisit the electricity privatization agreement and allow states, individuals and corporate organizations to generate and distribute power independent of the national grid. He mentioned this while speaking on the position of organized labor on the federal government's proposed electricity tariff adjustment. He says if allowed to fly, the increase will make industries that are already paying too much for power to fold up their businesses.
Many of our industries are going to close. Many of them run on generators. And with this tariff, certainly they will have to close down. And they cannot, it's not going to be competitive. Energy is a major major facility to promote industrial growth, promote industrialization. Our industrialization is at its lowest ebb, and therefore we must encourage industries to thrive. We must produce what we consume. How do we produce what we consume if we don't have power? That's the irony of it, and that's really a contradiction, and that to us is a big worry that we need to address. Labour is going to come out with clear position of engaging NERC. NERC is soft on the consumers, is soft on the discos and the gencos, the operators, but they are hard on we, the consumers. It ought not to be so. They need to protect consumer interests. I remember the last forum we had with them. Everybody that spoke was against any tariff increase. So if there is engagement with the consumers, and at the end of the day, the position of the consumers is not considered. They only consider that of the gencos or the operators just for profit. I think is an unfortunate situation, and it's high time we look at the entire regulation about our power sector reform. State can be able to generate power and power their businesses. Individuals can be able to generate their power and power their businesses, because the current situation have tied down people where they need to now generate power, put into the national grid, and the situation is not working.
Staying with the electricity challenge, successive governments have invested huge funds, instituted reforms, and continue to seek ways to grow capacity, which has largely been between 3,000 and 5,000 megawatts, despite needing about 40,000. In this next report, our energy correspondent, Olu Phillips, reviews some of the sector challenges in view of a proposed tariff review.
Electricity supply in Nigeria, whether at the residential, commercial consumption level or energy provision, has for a long time remained a thorny issue, a continuous talking point, and one that has sharply pitched consumers against providers. Whereas you may have different entities in the provider's value chain, the consuming public are basically differentiated by their consumption size. So thorny and in dire need for improvement that several reforms in the past have culminated in 2013 into a sector that has essentially moved from a public enterprise to a private sector-driven endeavor. Without boring you with all of the technicalities that compose the sector and its ability to deliver or otherwise, is to simply say consumers, Nigeria, want more power supplied to them, while operators want appropriate payment for the product being demanded. Call it cost-reflective tariff or the argument by consumers to have more before they can pay more. The sector needs a common ground.
We have a situation in Nigeria where people keep going back to that reference point. We produce the gas, so why are you going to sell power to us at a tariff that is higher than this tariff that doesn't even meet costs? Now, we've been talking about cost-reflective tariffs. Nobody in the world sells power at cost-reflective tariffs. It is at profit-reflective tariff.
Make no mistakes, huge funds have been committed to improve the sector, which includes international funding to either improve generation, transmission, distribution, off-grid solutions, meter asset providers, renewables. Still, the solutions are not as simple as plug and play. For instance, the discos are guided by the MITO, but the makeup of their consuming public differ, making collections a bit dicey. Power is bought from MBET at 26.50 kobo per kilowatt hour, but they are consuming public who by law are categorized as R1 customers who pay as little as 6.50 kobo, which is what makes the case for cross-subsidization using high-end consumers to substitute. But you must have a reasonable number of those commercial and industrial consumers to balance the books.
I think one very important thing that Nigerians must realize is that because it's a technical industry, people can hide behind technicalities and labelings. And because it's technical, the layman may not understand. It will be difficult for them to decipher who is actually saying what. The truth be told, all the sectors have their issues.
Last year, President Buhari signed an agreement with Siemens Germany. At the distilled level, they are already providing funding for entrepreneurs interested in renewables through the German delegation.
The delegation of German Industry and Commerce knows who is active in the field of renewables and energies here in Nigeria, and they also had some matchmaking with German companies. So I would say, yeah, that's proof of its success.
Truth and fact is, a review of electricity tariff is inevitable. It is provided for in the books, if you like, the law midwifing the privatization. There should have been a review by the 1st of this month, 2020. Perhaps that will happen in April. Bottom line, if the electricity sector must work like many like to compare it to the telecoms, there has to be multiple sources of power regardless of the complexities of politics and business. And consumers must be willing to pay for what they consume. That common ground has, however, remained elusive. Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, we have the Executive Director of the Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors with us to examine the electricity tariff issues. Plus, Edo APC crisis shows no sign of resolution as factions continue to trade words over legitimacy. Join us again.